sponsoring organizations. So we have these wonderful panelists who are here to answer questions for you. We're going to have them start by talking first about their careers in the STEM area, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and a little bit about who they are, how they got into their jobs maybe, what they do, and something fun that you do out of your work area too. So Seth, you've been down this drill before, so we're going to have you start.
Wow, all right. So I'm Seth Thornton, and I'm the Mechanical Architectural Power Plant Preventive Maintenance Planner Scheduler for the Facilities Engineering Group at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. That means I'm in the Facilities Management Group. And one of the greatest things that I love to work on is the energy conservation here at Fred Hutch. We put a lot of effort into conserving energy and water resources because when we save money on energy conservation, that means that money can go towards cancer research. So that's important to us. But we work to keep the place operating in a way that researchers can do what they need to do. You can imagine that maybe an average size house is about 1,700 square feet. Fred Hutch campus is about 1.7 million square feet. So we're 1,000 times the size of an average house. And with that comes 1,000 times the size of hot water tanks, so to speak. We have over 900 research freezers that contain valuable research that needs to be monitored and maintained. And so that's the fun stuff that I get to play with and work with. Technology is advancing in a way that it's incredible. We get to use graphic user interfaces and figure out what's going on in our buildings and how to fix the problems as they come up. And we have incredible engineering groups that are working on really, I think, above and beyond the standard for energy conservation for this campus. And we rely on that a lot. So those are the areas I'm passionate about. My wife and I moved here close by, about 1.5 miles away after I got the job here. And so on sunny days that we have every now and then, I'll walk home and my wife and 3-year-old will meet me halfway and we'll run off to the park or watch the seaplanes take off from the lake. It's a gorgeous area to be, and it's a place that I'm just ecstatic about being connected to and a part of.
Thanks, Seth. Andrew, you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and
Sure.
what excites you?
So I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Seattle Biomed, and I do TB, tuberculosis, drug discovery. So I'm actually not on an academic postdoctoral track. Because I focus very specifically on drug discovery, I've been doing a lot of collaborations with large companies, with the WHO, large pharmaceutical companies, and that has its pluses and minuses. It sounded fascinating when I first took the postdoc, because I knew I didn't want to stay in academia, but it comes with a lot of red tape. I've got to know the legal team where I work really well, because every step of the way there's some piece of paperwork that has to get filed. So that's not the exciting part of my job. I think our legal counsel was here at the previous panel. She loves that stuff, but I really just enjoy doing the experiments and feeling like I'm doing something that's connected to healthcare outcomes pretty immediately. So I enjoy that. I've been doing this now for about 4 years, and when I'm not doing that, there's a ton of other things that I'd love to do. But I like doing ceramics, and I like doing crafty things that don't require protocols, I guess.
Or a legal signature.
Right.
Thank you. Kavita.
Hi, so my name is Kavita Shah. I'm the Associate Director in the Technology Transfer Office, Industry Relations and Technology Transfer
Just
Office.
point this towards you a little bit more.
And
That's
I don't talk very loudly.
There you
Is that
go.
helpful? Okay. So as I was saying, our office is called the Industry Relations and Tech Transfer Office. And what we do, just to give you a sense about what the office does as a whole, we help to translate the discoveries, the scientific discoveries that are made here, into products that are of public benefit. And in addition to that, we help the scientists here to collaborate with other organizations, maybe other universities or companies. And I'm currently managing the office and also being part of the team that helps promote the partnerships that we have with industry. And the reason that that's so incredibly important is because the Hutch scientists make incredible breakthroughs. We get a new invention disclosed to us every week. And the thing about that is, though, we can only take that science so far before we need to partner with a company that has the expertise to turn it into a product that can then be beneficial to the public. And so our office is in the middle of that, helping the faculty to realize that and realize those products with their discoveries. So it's really fun for me because I was trained as a scientist. I did a PhD. I love science and I love learning about what's new and exciting and at the cutting edge. But I was always passionate about how that would be applied and how it would eventually help patients. And so now I'm sort of in the middle there, trying to help with that process. And let's see, for fun, I have lots of hobbies. I used to volunteer for the Seattle Architecture Foundation, so I have a real passion for design and cooking. That's another thing that has a lot to do with wanting to just experiment and not follow any rules like you do in science and experiments. But mostly nowadays, I spend all of my time with my 1.5-year-old son and a little time with his dad. Well, I apologize for that, but we have a lot of fun inventing things, games.
Very cool, thank you. Janelle.
So my name is Janelle Mooster. I work for the University of Washington School of Medicine and Howard Hughes Medical Institute. My job description is I'm a lab manager for the lab of Randy Moon, and he's got 30 people underneath him, encompassing a gamut of technicians, research scientists, postdoctorates, graduate students, and on occasion rotation students. So my job is to make sure everything flows smoothly within the lab. We've got our fingers in a lot of different things, so there's a lot to do. And one of the things that I get to do is deal with, I don't work with the Hutch, but we've got a tech transfer office at the UW, which is what Kavita does. And so I'm the guy that takes the documents, the new inventions that we come up with, which we've actually been coming up with a lot recently, take them to the tech transfer office and say, we need to patent this, we need to give rights to this company, this and that. And so I'm the guy that deals with the Kavita of the UW. Kavita and I have a history because she did her graduate studies in the lab I work for now, and we sort of grew up together, as I'd like to think of it.
He was hired while I was there.
Yeah, that was like almost 9 years ago, too. Anyways,
Maybe a small world.
yeah, I know.
He was in Seattle, especially.
Yeah, but let's see.
Something fun outside of work?
Something fun outside of work. Well, okay. Kavita's saying I should bring up the mustache competition, which I'm currently engaged in.
It's a hobby.
And there's a massive mustache competition going on. I think I'm winning, and I will win once I get the tails grown out really nice and long. Another thing I do is I'm an armorer for King County SWAT, Island County, Whatcom County, and Snohomish County. So I build all their guns.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's totally different. Right?
Yeah.
He's not scary at all.
Yeah.
Mustaches and
He's
guns.
okay.
Yeah.
Sure he wasn't armed when he came in. Excellent. Thank you very much. Jeremy.
Sure. So my name is Jeremy Kim, and I work at Seattle Children's Research Institute, and I have a pretty unusual job. And I think out of all of us here, I'm probably the most undereducated compared to the rest of you. So I only have an undergraduate degree, but I work at the Research Institute, but I work in health and science education. So my title is Mobile Lab Scientist, and I work on a 45-foot long, it's like an RV-style vehicle, but it's a science lab on wheels, basically. And so we drive this thing all around Washington State, and we go to elementary and middle schools, and we're targeting those schools that particularly wouldn't have the resources to have a science lab at their school. And we're doing that because it's really important that we are educating the students who are going to become scientists when I eventually retire at some point in my life. But it's a really unique job, and I'm the only person on the West Coast that I'm aware of that works on a mobile science lab, and it's super fun. I mean, I guess I'm an advocate for science, and so I'm going around to these elementary schools and I'm teaching science. The kids get on board, and the inside of it's literally a science lab. So they get to do a real hands-on experiment with us while they're on board. And so it's tons of fun. I love it. It's fun as far as what I do for fun. I love soccer and I love skiing, and it's a good state for that, especially with the Sounders here and Mount Baker right just up north. I love it.
Excellent. So let's hear a little bit about how you got to where you are, because it probably wasn't a one-shot deal that got you there. You probably took a few twists and turns. So, how do people get to the kinds of jobs that you have? And anybody could start.
Well, I'll go ahead and start. I started off, I grew up in a construction family, right? And so I was always on construction sites as a kid. When I got a little older, I started my own business doing finished carpentry and painting. I enjoyed that, but I got married and realized, boy, it's nice to have benefits. It sure would be nice to have a job somewhere else. And so I got a job at a hospital up north. And I essentially did the same thing for them, worked in their maintenance and engineering department for about 9 years. I met an intern there who was doing an internship for a Bachelor of Science in Facility Management. Anyone ever heard of bachelor degree in facility management? I hadn't. But I said, that's what I want to do. Sign me up. And so there are 5 universities in the US that offer that degree. They all have different minors to them. One is business, one's architecture, one's interior design. And so I picked one. And after getting a 2-year transfer degree in business, I didn't get into that one. They didn't want me, apparently, at BYU. So I talked to Ferris State University in Michigan, and they minor in architecture. And so that was literally the next closest school. And I think I got the best of both worlds. I had the business background, and then I got to take a bunch of architecture classes, which I found fascinating and exciting. And finished a Bachelor of Science in Facility Management, where I did an internship for Fred Hutch, and they apparently liked me. And after dating them for a while, they decided to tie the knot. So I've been a permanent employee here, working in the facility management group.
Thank you. Who else would like to talk about their twisted career path?
I'll give it a shot. So I started in the construction industry myself as well. I did HVAC. Yeah. So that's heating, venting, air conditioning. After that, I did demolitions. So we had that little earthquake, what was it, like 15 years ago? And I basically toppled chimneys for a year. And then had, masons would come in and build them back up. But I'd have to knock them down. So that was a lot of fun. Went to work for Seattle Fire Department. And then I decided I was going to go back to school, and went to school, got a degree as an organic chemist, and my last quarter was when I joined the Moon Lab, and ended up becoming the lab manager.
So that was a little leap from demolition to organic chemistry.
Yeah.
So what intrigued you? Did you have that interest early in life?
It's kind of like cooking,
Mm.
except you're cooking with chemicals. That's really how I've always looked at it, and I love to cook. I like making things with chemicals. It just sort of fit. As weird as it sounds.
Yeah, I can see that. Who's gonna talk? Yeah, Kavita.
Okay. So tech transfer is really unique. It's kind of a niche, and in fact, universities and other nonprofit academic institutions really have only been practicing tech transfer since 1980, when the government enacted a new law that assigned the rights of inventions to in universities or inventors rather than to the government, that which was funded by the government in the first place. And so it's kind of a young field. And so I took a really windy path, just like many people do who don't do research from their degree. I started out in the family of doctors and chemists. So I went to school, got a chemistry undergraduate degree, and then I decided to do my PhD. But halfway through, I realized I didn't really want to be the person working at the bench. I wanted to be more involved with the application of the science. And so I just started exploring. I started talking to everyone I could find about what they could do with their PhD besides bench work. And at that time, the University of Washington was starting to put programs together that would expose you to other careers. And eventually, I just started learning about clinical research and about tech transfer. I ended up doing a little internship in the University of Washington's tech transfer office. And then I went to industry for a few years to understand that side of things. How does the industry look at science, and what's the business perspective on science? And I waited patiently until someone here in Seattle had an opening in the tech transfer office. And so I would say some of it was just being open to other opportunities that interested me and not really knowing I was going to end up in tech transfer and just trying things out. And then some of it was luck, because it's sometimes about timing and the opportunities that are available at a given time, kind of like your opportunity at that school. So I wouldn't say I knew I was going to end up in tech transfer. I'm really happy that I'm here, and it fits me really well, but the path was really required an openness, and just the common element is I always wanted to do something that translated science to helping people. And if you stay focused on a passion like that, you can find a lot of ways to get to do that with your career.
Anu, Jeremy?
I can go.
Okay.
Sure. So my degree in college was in molecular and cell biology, and I was a pre-med student in college. And so my goal the entire time was to eventually go to med school. But one of the big things that I really ended up enjoying in college was actually teaching. And so I found out that I TA'd a general biology class when I was a sophomore, I think, and found out that I actually really, really liked that. And throughout the rest of college, for every single quarter, I ended up being a TA for one class or the other. And then when it came to graduate, I had to decide what I actually wanted to do. And there were a lot of different things I was interested in. I was actually double majored in philosophy. So for a while, I was thinking about law school for a while as well. And I still loved teaching, so I couldn't figure out how to balance all these things. And then this job appeared, and I was like, man, I really want to do this. I mean, I've never taught 4th through 8th graders before, and that might be something fun to do for a little bit. And I don't think anyone's ever taught on a mobile science lab before, so I'll try that out. And so I applied for it, and the program's pretty young. We started in 2009, and I've been here for 2 years now. And about a year into it, I realized that I still wanted to go to med school, and I had been studying for the MCAT the entire time. And so I decided to take the test, and then I applied. And so I'll be going to UW for med school this upcoming fall. And so my job is going to be passed along to somebody else. But the 2 years I've been here have been the best time of my life, though. I think if I had applied straight out of college, I may not have gotten in, just because the life experience that you get from having a real job out of college makes a really big difference for who you are as a person. And I learned that I really liked certain things and I really didn't like other things. And having life experience and having people who actually depend on you made a really big difference. One thing I really didn't realize in college is that in college you kind of are there to get your own degree, and you still have your circle of friends and you help each other, but really you're there for yourself. But when you're outside of college and you have a real job, you have responsibilities that other people depend on, and that's something that I don't think a lot of people really realize until it's something they experience themselves. And having a real job and being able to have a lot of fun while I was doing it was a great experience for me. And so it was kind of a twisty path, but not nearly as much as that, I don't think. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anu, how about you?
So on some levels, given that I'm still doing research, I haven't really had a twisted path to get here, but it did
There's
seem,
time, Anu. There's time.
yeah, I'm sure there'll be a twist somewhere in the future, but you know, I kind of seemed to be doing what seemed easiest, and it just kept sort of snowballing. And when I was doing my PhD, I was doing a very esoteric research focus, and I felt like it was interesting on some levels, but it just seemed to have no application. And kind of like Kavita, I wanted to have some impact on health outcomes in a more immediate way than a textbook figure that nobody was ever going to read. And so when I finished my PhD, I realized I didn't want to, unlike Jeremy, I didn't want to teach. I'd figured that out. So I knew I wanted to do research, but in some sort of applied way. So I decided infectious disease research had sort of started to become a hotter topic. Unfortunately, it became harder to find a job. But I moved to Seattle. It was TB, World TB Day. And one of the professors who I'd been interested in working with was going to be speaking at town hall, so I just stalked him and just kept following him around until finally he said, "Okay, well, I've got a little money. You can come work for me." So that's how I ended up here. So that was a bit of a stroke of luck, because it's sometimes a little hard to switch fields entirely.
So it sounds like there's kind of an intersection of preparation, opportunity, and just plain old good luck, right, that get you where you're going. I'm just kind of curious whether, obviously you took technical training. All of you have very specific technical training. Were there some classes that wouldn't fit in that normal, sphere of heading straight for your goal that you go, that was a really good class to take, it really helped me in some way that I never would have expected? Mr. Philosophy major.
I was about to just say,
something there for you, right?
one of the classes I took was called epistemology, and that's basically you're trying to figure out or trying to study what it means to be thinking about different things. And so that was a really hard class. That was actually my hardest class in college, and that was harder than any cell biology or molecular biology class I took, and it was just really abstract. And one thing that's really awesome about philosophy is that you kind of learn to learn to read material and kind of process things in a way that is really, really different than any other way. And it ends up actually being a very useful thing. I just read the other day that as far as undergraduate degrees go, besides the engineers, the next most employable degree is actually philosophy, which I never would have guessed that. And philosophy was just something that I was really interested in. And so I guess my point is that sometimes you do something that's just because it's fun or something you think is interesting, and then it ends up being applied in a way that you had never thought of. And for me, I don't know if philosophy necessarily has manifested that way, but for a lot of people who do something like philosophy, they end up being the 9th most employable college undergraduate degree, which, I mean, who knew that?
I'm sure there are a lot of parents who are very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So opportunities, classes, experiences, not directly in your field, but really helped you? Yeah.
Well, I would say that the first 2 years of your undergraduate just sort of helps you decide what way you want to go. Because, there's all those prereqs that you got to take, and it sort of helps, like, you find that you fit in one path better than another. Because, I mean, I had an idea I wanted to go in the sciences, but I had no idea which way I was going to go. It just so happened that chemistry clicked with me, and I loved it. But I also took the biology classes and, mathematics, everything that I had to take. It's just chemistry was the way I went. And when I finished, you would have called me an organic chemist because, well, that's what I did. I do not like inorganic chemistry. I was an organic chemist. Now, if you have to give me a title, I'm a molecular biologist because that's what I've been doing for the last 9 years. They're similar because organic chemistry is molecular biology, just within the living cell. But yeah, I mean, it's that those first 2 years, just take it easy and just kind of follow what feels right. That's what I would think.
So right now my public speaking class is coming in handy. You never know what you're going to be assigned to do or able to do in this type of setting. The one class, thinking back, that surprised me, that I used it a lot once I got into the field, was technical writing. I worked on writing papers, and you've all seen the manual for your remote control, right? Or the very technical, you need this many tools to accomplish this task, and set it out so that people can understand what it says. That actually turned into an incredible asset for me, being able to write things out, technical things that everybody needs to be able to understand in an emergency. And that was the big surprise for me. The architecture, the construction documents, the space planning, the project management, I just loved all that stuff, and I just had no idea that technical writing would be such a significant part of the actual work I'd be doing.
How about for you, Annie?
Nothing specific like that comes to mind. I mean, I did take a year off between my undergrad and my PhD, and I didn't do science at all. I mean, I really think that what Jeremy said about getting some work experience really helps a lot. I had a lot of research experience in undergrad, so I didn't feel that was necessary, but I used that year off to get all the art out of my system, and I'd spent 6 months apprenticing with an artist and another 4 months doing a ceramic workshop. So it was kind of nice to know that, okay, you can take those kind of breaks, and it's not like you get slotted in, and you can do other stuff.
How about you, Kavita?
Yeah, similarly, I can't think of a class that I took outside of my field that I could pull immediately from, but I took a lot. One of the challenges I had in trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life was that I like a lot of things, and I took all sorts of courses as an undergraduate. I mean, I did my bachelor's in biochemistry, but I also did one in art history, so I was doing arts and sciences at the same time, and I think that the best thing that did was give me balance, give me the ability to be balanced in more than one area of interest. So, but I would agree, however, that technical writing is incredibly valuable. I did not take that class, and I wish I would have, because then I'd be able to write a manual of something. But I'd say that's really, really, really valuable. That, and I also didn't take a statistics course, which comes in incredibly, incredibly handy. And then also, I'd say a basic business class. If you have any interest in things beyond, in how things translate and how things get, like kind of the practical aspects of how to get things done, that basic business methods are really, really valuable.
I'm going to just ask one more question before I open it up to the audience to ask their questions. What was the best or worst advice you got about your careers? And if you have one of each, feel free.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Well, the best advice that I got was to be too focused on what my degree was called, or to what courses I was taking per se, but to try to build skills, specific skills that are valuable, like public speaking is a really, really valuable skill. And depending on what your interests are, there are certain skill sets that are really, really useful. And being a person who likes to blab a lot and having an ability to build partnerships between and help facilitate cooperation, that's a skill. And so my dad is one of my heroes, and my dad had a lot of advice like that was focused on really try thinking that way rather than being kind of fixated on, well, I studied this in school, so this is what I can do. So try not to he was telling me to be open-minded that way. That was the best advice. Some of the worst advice he also gave me, which was when I called him from the college campus phone telling him I was sick of my science classes and I wanted to do an art history degree as my major, like for the only schoolwork I was going to do. And he was like, "You'll never get a job." And then, which isn't true either, because honestly, you can start out there and still end up in science. You can go to medical school with many people with art history degrees. So there's a lot you can do if you're open-minded and driven and stalk people. You can get a lot done. You really can.
Janelle, it looks like you have something.
Well, I was about to ask Kavita, was that expand your skill set? Was that from Randy? Or
He
that
was
your
really
dad?
good about that too. I was very fortunate to have a mentor as a graduate. A lot of graduate students who are doing PhDs feel that it's challenging to step out of doing a career at the bench, and you'll probably often hear that if you know any PhD students. But mine, Randy, was a really supportive person who just wanted you to be happy and do something valuable and learn from your degree. So he probably did say something similar to that too.
Well, what I was about to ask you before you started, because
What?
Randy told me,
Oh,
was expand your skill set, learn everything you can, just and follow your dreams. Learn whatever you can, follow your dreams, and you can go anywhere you want in life.
There should be some music playing. In
Yeah. How does anyone
Like,
follow
so
that up?
it's just
Well, we
like
were looking
looking
at
at-
like unions, that's.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to add to what they both said. It's sort of similar. When I was in high school, actually, I got this advice from my high school guidance counselor. It wasn't advice so much as a way to make us all feel better, because I too just couldn't decide what I wanted to do. I wanted to do literature, I wanted to do art, I wanted to do science. And some people said, do science because you can do all the other stuff in your free time, which I think is bad advice. But I ended up doing science because his theory was that, I don't know where he read this or if it was true, but he told us that in this day and age, people are going to have more than one career. And not just more than one job, that's sort of a given these days, but 4 or 5 entirely different sort of skill sets that you'll be using to do a specific job. So he said, don't worry about what you study, because you'll probably end up doing something entirely different by the end of it. So that was sort of appeasing to me. It was like, okay, I could just do it all then.
Probably the best advice that I've gotten getting into the field is find a mentor. Find someone that's really good at the stuff they do, and that, in my field, in facility management, and learn from them. There's so much out there to learn. The world is so big that if you can connect with someone who's willing to share their experience and knowledge with you, it's a great way to pick it up, and you can advance, and you can ride on their shoulders a little bit. It moves you forward and puts you in a place that really empowers you to be successful in your career.
So what questions do you have for our panelists? Anything you'd like to know?
If you guys did anything besides the jobs you already do, what would you do job-wise?
I'd be an architect. I was really torn between those paths when I was and I still love it. So I could do that in a couple years, switch paths altogether.
Yeah, I'd probably be a potter.
I'd be a machinist.
Well, I guess I will be a doctor at some point.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't going to do that, then I think I'd want to do something pretty similar to what I do now, and maybe some sort of education, either high school or middle school or maybe college. So I think I'd want to be a teacher of some sort.
So growing up, I always said I wanted to be a scientist. Somehow that changed. The construction field changed me somehow, perhaps. We use the scientific approach on the issues we face and deal with. And now, if I were to change careers, I'd probably have to go with, facility management is all related, right? Professional engineer, architect, there's construction management. If I were to completely pull away from all of that, I would probably have to go with veterinarian.
What other questions do you have? Yeah.
So I was wondering, science and technology changes drastically, and I'm wondering, are there websites that you guys regularly visit, or how do you keep on top of all the changes in each one of your areas? Are there favorite books, or what are you reading?
So, healthcare facilities, healthcare facility management, there are several magazines and productions that are created that we peruse all the time. Just recently, they featured an article about the hospital I used to work at up north. Some just amazing engineering they performed to create a big new tower and the energy efficiencies related to it. We believe strongly in our group that we need to see outside our walls. We look for tours and opportunities to see other places and what they're doing, and we invite other organizations to come in and see what we're doing. We know that if we have tunnel vision and only see what we're doing, we're not going to advance as much as we need to.
How the rest of you keep up? Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and well, in the sort of the basic research side, there's just too much to read, right? And there's, even if you really narrow down to the exact thing that you're working on, there's still too much to read. So I try to keep up with some reading. We have a whole lot of seminars, which are really helpful because you're sort of tapping into other people's reading then and what they've been, hearing about. Conferences are great for the same reason. It's just sort of a condensed way of getting the best minds to talk about stuff. But I don't know if anyone else has any good ideas. It's constantly difficult.
Yeah, it's information overload, right, for anybody in any way. But I'd say that the best way that I am able to keep up with news, I need to keep in touch with pharmaceutical and biotech news and things that I like email alerts. So I like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Business, and some newsletters that are specific to the biotech and pharma industry, as well as the major scientific publications, Science and Nature. They have news sections and they have table of contents. I think that's enough to keep me connected. I get email alerts. I get a lot of email, but they'll just have highlights of what's going on. And for me, because I'm not doing something very specific as she's speaking about, I kind of can get a breath of broadly what's going on and what kinds of trends and things that are occurring in the industry. I'd say that's really the only way. I don't know how else to stay on top of all of the volume, really.
For us, PubMed. So it's run by National Institute of Health. They run PubMed, right? Yeah. So it's like a search engine that searches journal articles, and so we're like the lab I work for. We study a particular protein pathway called the Wnt pathway. So we focus on the Wnt pathway. So we use PubMed to search for Wnt and see what comes up new. Everything else that's been mentioned that's also, I mean, that's what we use too, but for us, we follow the journals and the papers, the new stuff that comes out, and PubMed's the way to go for that.
For us, it's just gathering a lot of like-minded people together. So one of the things we do annually is we have a mobile lab coalition, and so we're one of the only labs on the West Coast, but there are several all over the United States, and we gather together yearly, and people who are working in education in this type of a environment where we're driving mobile science labs around, we all get together and discuss best practice methods and like how the best way to transfer this energy and this education to the kids. So I think it's a lot of that.
What other questions do you have? Would you tell us something exciting that's going on in your area, either your area or your organization in general? Something on the cutting edge or pretty exciting?
So here at Fred Hutch, we acquired a new building, and we've set a new standard for energy conservation at that building. Instead of big giant fans running and then needing to stop if we shut them off, we have little small fans, and just a few of them will flip on as much as we need, or flip off, or all of them on and off, and that regulates our energy usage. We're saving the center close to $2 million a year on energy conservation based on projects, 160 projects we've done over the years. And so that's important to us, and so having a new building like that, where we've been able to get together with architects and engineers in our facilities management group and put those ideas together and make them real, that's the exciting stuff that we're working on right now.
Go ahead. Well, there's this isn't work that I'm doing directly, but I'm sort of partly involved in. There's a malaria clinical trial going on at Seattle Biomed, and that's really exciting because it's the first malaria clinical trial that we've done at our site, and it's finally up and running, and its results will be shortly available, I think. So it's pretty exciting that we actually have cohorts of people coming in, and it's taking the science to the actual people. So it's the first time we're doing that.
Yeah, I want to get in on that.
You can.
So,
Everyone to volunteer.
One thing that's going on that's exciting that's organization-wide, I mean, there's a ton of incredible science going on always, but we have a big campaign, a campaign to reach out to the community. It's entitled Be Breakthrough, and it was launched just earlier this year. It's really exciting. There are a few departments that have been collaborating to put that together, but it's a way to reach out to the community, share more about ourselves, help everyone understand. Everyone in the area knows of the hutch and knows there's science going on there, but it's sometimes they're not as aware of all the things that are occurring. So that's been going on. There have been some TV spots and things on the radio, and today there's a telethon going on to raise money for the center. So you can check it out. I'm plugging it. Be Breakthrough. But in our office, one cool thing that's really going on is that there are nationwide or globally, the biggest pharmaceutical companies are starting to reduce their research and discovery divisions. It's just the way that the field is going, because they don't have their strengths there, and so what they're doing is looking at academic institutions to partner with in order to identify those big discoveries that then they can focus on and develop into drugs or their other diagnostics for treatments for disease. And so we're currently in the process of working on some broader scale collaborations with big companies for our center. And so that's really exciting and new. It'll be something very new for the center.
This kind of falls into murky waters because it involves animals. But as you all know, animal studies are a big part of research, because you kind of need to do it to make sure it actually will work. And it progresses upwards. And one of our model organisms that we use, they're zebrafish, little tropical fishies about an inch long. And they have this amazing capability to regenerate body parts. You can cut off their fin, and they'll grow it back in a week. You can cut off a third of their heart, and it'll grow back in a week. Like, it's crazy, but you can just start chopping away at these little guys, and they just regrow right away. So the idea is, our genome, for the most part, between a human and this little zebrafish, it's not really that different. I mean, there's a percentage. It's something like, what is it, 3 to 4% difference? It's tiny, but that small 3 to 4% is what makes you a human instead of a fish. So they've got the same genes. It's just that these fish have these genes that are turned on that they're not turned on in humans anymore. So we're trying to figure out how to turn them on in mammalian systems, which the next organism up on the chain of things would be mice. And what we've been doing is we've been studying spinal transections, where you're basically breaking the spine of this poor little fishy, but then he regrows his, the spinal cord fuses, and the fish is just fine like 3 weeks later. Swims like a normal fish, completely, everything's cool. Same thing with the chopping off fins, chopping off a chunk of the heart, all that good stuff. I know, it's pretty nasty. Anyways, the idea is we want to be able to put this into mammalian systems, and once you can do it in mammals like a mouse, then you can translate it into humans. And the effects of this would be great, because you've got a bad heart. Okay, well, we dose you with whatever goo we dose you with, and your heart regenerates, and everything's cool. You lose a limb, like in a war, you grow it back. It's pretty cool stuff. That's what we're moving towards.
One thing that's pretty cool about my program is that when the kids get on board and they do the science experiments, they're using real authentic equipment. So they're using real vortex mixers and micropipettes and heat blocks, and you name it. And something that's really cool is that we're always moving towards using even more high-tech equipment. So right now we have like touchpad computers on our science lab as well. And one thing we're moving towards is using more clinical equipment as well. And so one of the lessons we do right now, the students will use real spirometry, and they will take their peak flow and their tidal volume. But one thing that's really awesome is we're moving towards developing a new module right now, and we're going to be hopefully purchasing a model that will simulate anaphylaxis. And those things are really expensive, but they're also really cool. And they're actually they're actually the models that medical students and nursing students use to learn how to intubate and how to deal with anaphylactic shock and all those different kind of things at a model before you actually get to a real human being. And this is something that we're going to be doing with 4th graders through 8th graders. And I mean, we're bringing real authentic science to a really young audience and hopefully getting them exposed and excited at a really young age. And those kind of developments are always really exciting.
And maybe you can test out of that part of it, Jeremy. when you become a
Yeah.
doctor.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank our panelists for being here today. Thank you so much. If you want to talk with some of our panelists, I'm sure they'd be willing to talk with you outside this weekend.